Today, we're looking at a green ink from Pelikan Edelstein's Aventurine. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. It really does help me out here. Now, if you're new here, hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. And if you're not new here, then welcome back. If you like green inks and want to take a look at more of them, there's a link to that playlist down in the description. The writing samples always start out with three standard papers: Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. Let's take a look at the first of that, 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading. Look at how Edelstein starts much lighter, shows some darker spots, keeps getting lighter, and gets very dark. The extra fine is quite a bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, almost no real shading to speak of, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. Some of the shading does come through a little better. Look at brown, where you get some of the darks and lights back and forth. Fox gets light at the bottom of the F into the O, and then very dark at the X. 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, although we really only got it in the medium. And the smear test says you could likely recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, the writing samples are always done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Nimacine Fission with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a tad bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading coming through, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both are showing some color variation, but we're not getting it in the writing. And the smear test, you would not recover this if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to be learned by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, it's immediately put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is the old yellow and blue makes green. We see a nice bright yellow, not a fluorescent type yellow, at the bottom pushing its way up. And the green that you see in the chromatography is just simply that yellow and blue mixed. And the blue is really a very blue-leaning turquoise, but it's quite interesting. Now the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked into water, and it largely looks the same. It's a bit more separated, where you see some of the white of the paper coming through between that yellow and blue, which means the yellow stands the greatest chance of being a stick-around type color. The next paper is 80 GSM Rhodia Dot Pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, moments of shading, like you see the T in Aventurine is a bit darker, the dot of the I in Pelikan, and the end of Edelstein, all a little bit darker. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some much better shading. The quick starts dark, gets light, and gets dark again. Brown starts dark and works its way light. Fox goes from dark to light to dark. Much better here than we've seen on the other papers, and 5 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. Yes, it has shading. Brown starts darker and works its way a little bit lighter. Quick, right at the end of the Q, through the U, it's a bit lighter, and then it gets very dark. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, and we are getting some in the writing, and the smear test says you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it does get a little bit woolly there, it does get a little bit of spread, but all of the information is maintained intact, which could make you feel confident using it in a note-taking situation. Now the water, you have to look at the very bottom part of what went on there because the pen flesh kind of worked its way down. But the water is reactivating and lifting most all of this off the page. You see some of that yellow being left behind. It's not getting all of it off the paper, although water got all of it out of my pen. Pen flesh is doing everything that water did and a little bit more. It's being just a little bit more aggressive, which you would expect for it having some more chemicals in it. That 1/3 bleach solution surprisingly left the yellow behind. I was surprised that it didn't completely remove it from the paper, but again, we're not going to need the bleach solution or the pen flesh to clean the pen. The next writing samples are done on papers that change up from video to video, and in this one we're going to take a look at Northbook's paper. The only bleed spots that we're seeing are here at the scrubby, which aren't too much of a big deal really. Other than that, we have no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 2 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't really show color variation, we didn't get it, and the smear test, you could likely recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Edelstein's Aventurine has a viscosity of 1.52, making this a pretty darn wet. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested or how that bell curve's made, then there's a link to that video down in the description. The next paper is Nemosinine. The only bleed spots that we see happening are at the scrubby, and not a big deal. Other than that, no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and some moments of shading that are occurring, like the N in Edelstein, the E in Edelstein, the T in Aventurine. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading here is some of the best we've seen. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark again. Brown starts dark, gets light, and gets dark, so it's pretty good here, and 4 seconds to dry. Now, the medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still some decent shading on this paper. Quick starts dark, gets light, and gets dark again. Brown goes from dark to light to dark, and 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show color variation, and we are getting some. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Edelstein's Aventurine has an average dry time of 8 seconds, making this an incredibly fast drying ink. The last writing sample is done on crowd favorite 20-pound copy paper. We do see that it bleeds quite a bit all over the place. However, it's not touching the page underneath. You just can't use the back of the page. You're going to render both sides' information absolutely useless. It results in a ton of ghosting. That's not really ghosting, it's bleed. The medium has some spread to about a broad. It's really not feathering, which is incredible on 20-pound copy paper. It has no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the medium. It's got no feathering, which is incredible. It does spread to about a medium. It has no halo, no sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, and there wasn't one. And the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Edelstein's Olivine, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I like putting orange with green, and I chose Callifolio's Cannelle. If you're interested in different colors for the complement, check the description and you're going to see links to those playlists. So what do I think of Edelstein's Aventurine? I like green inks and I like Edelstein ink, so I'm biased. It does shade occasionally, though not nearly as much as I would like, but it is very well behaved. So what nib and pen would give the best writing experience with this ink? I see this as really being a dealer's choice, not because I like it so much, but because it's so consistent in its performance. You only ever get moments of shading given the right circumstance, so ink your favorite pen and go from there. I hope you got something out of this video, and tomorrow we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Adraze, or Hydrogena.